Hey, how are you?
I'm good. How about yourself?
Mm, I'm alive.
I gotta turn my light on here 1 second. Just alive. You're feeling better from last week or not?
Yeah. I'm back to normal, except I still have the residue of muscle aches, and I can't shake it off.
Oof.
So my back has been killing me, man. I worked out yesterday. I did my pull-ups and dips, but it's just not going away.
Hmm.
I don't know if it's because of my new motorcycle that I've been trying to ride every single day to get in the hours of learning and to
Hmm.
build muscle memory, or if it's legitimately just from being sick. I don't know.
Hmm.
But
Yeah, I don't know. Does riding a motorcycle tend to like shift posture and cause pain or whatever for
riding it
new people?
riding it always has me focused on keeping my back straight, or keeping my what do you call it? Uh Attempting to maintain good posture.
Gotcha. You should have bought one of
Because
those
I'm
like bikes where you have to go like this.
what do they call that? The monkey bar or gorilla bars or something?
Those things are
Nah,
ridiculous.
I saw somebody riding yesterday on it. I don't know how they turn with that.
Yeah, no idea.
It, like watching someone do that is just as bad as watching someone wear their pants on their kneecap and like trying to walk. I just feel like it's too much effort,
Yeah, I
right?
feel like if
To
you had to itch your nose or something, like you'd be like this, and all of a sudden you'd be like your hand would, and then your hand would go this, and you just fall over.
and you automatically pull both hands down when you
Ugh.
try to scratch your nose, right?
Yeah,
So uh,
stop. I don't know. It's
I
really
think
weird.
so one of the something that we used to try to do when we were like adolescents is,
Hmm.
I think I mentioned this to you before, but like try to pat your head and then rub your tummy in a clockwise or counter. It doesn't matter, in a circular motion at the same
Yeah,
time. I can't do it.
at all, even as an adult.
I'm a
Probably
little bit
switched
better
it just a
now,
little
but
hard, but yeah, huh?
yeah. I did it a little bit, but I think like 10, 15 years ago or longer than that, I couldn't do it. I couldn't explain why. So
Hmm.
maybe it was stand on one foot and then do it. I don't know. That shouldn't make a difference, right?
I suppose it's juggling multiple unusual tasks with your body at the same time. So
That's
yeah,
what riding a motorcycle has taught me. Like, thankfully, it's interesting how muscle memory kind of takes over, right? And things start becoming subconscious, and you just do it.
hmm yeah, we adapt pretty well to our environment.
Have you ever rode a motorcycle before? Well, you've rode stick shift,
Ah,
right?
yeah, I've driven stick. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Um,
your muscle memory just automatically takes over after like a week.
yeah, I don't, I really want to drive a manual again. Um,
Good, good
I've
luck.
thought about buying like another, just for fun. I've thought about buying just another vehicle to do that with because it's just something I don't want to be like. I don't know. Maybe if you go back to it as like riding a bike, it's like you know, no matter how long it's been since you last rode a bike, you never really forget how to ride a bike. Like is that the
Yeah.
same with manual transmissions? Like I mean, yeah, the sweet spot where the clutch engages is going to be different on different vehicles, and like the I don't know the firmness of the actual shifter is probably going to be a little different, but
I don't
still,
know.
it's the
For
same
me.
process.
For me, I feel like it's a it's a what's the word, nostalgic experience. I feel like anytime I'm operating something that's severely mechanical, I feel like there's like this type of prestige of I don't know. I kind of compare it to like owning a Swiss Army watch, or no, I'm butchering this. Swiss Army knife. No, no.
Yeah.
What's the watch? Is it
A
what?
Swiss watch? It's just a Swiss watch,
So
right?
okay, so they do a lot of things. Yeah, I just feel like there's some nostalgia to it. Like there's some vintage to it, even if like it's a 2022 going to 2023 model. Like just that act of choosing something that requires manual intervention versus taking advantage of something that's pretty much automated. I kind of feel like there's like status to it, right? And
Hmm.
it's your body is you get closer to your body being seamless with the machine or being integrated with the machine um, more than you would if it was just a pure automatic, right? And all you had to do was use your foot
Yeah.
to so
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good analogy. Like, yeah, automated versus what mated. You're mated with the vehicle? No, I don't think that's what that means.
I mean, yeah, that makes sense though.
Matic. It's automatic versus matic. I
Manual,
think matic actually is a matic. I thought that had a word or meaning.
masochist.
Matic definition. No, maybe not. Hmm.
I think I told you the last masterminds. I have almost zero interest in programming now. I'm starting to blame my job for that.
Yeah, yeah, I could see that. I actually got a little inspired to, for no reason, to work back on this like fantasy console thing I was working on before I started my current gig, which is a little fun. Uh, but yeah, I really like to program still. I just want to do it in my job or for things in my job because there's actually problems that I know I could solve, like if I could just go off and work on them, But it's like it's not my defined work, so.
No, no, it kind of there's like working with a whole bunch of people and coordinating and negotiating and making compromises, and then there's like what do you call it? What do you call it? A freelancer, right? Is it really a freelancer where like you just own the project that they give you and you don't have to work with their employees? It's like you own it and you're held accountable for delivering it, and there aren't other minds that you're forced to pair with to program it.
Yeah, I don't think that's freelancing
It's
because
not.
freelancing is like a mode of operation, right? Like I'm not I'm not part of a company.
Well, what's the difference
It's more
between
like
a
I'm a solo
freelancer and a contractor?
a contractor. I think freelancers can be contractors, right?
I think a freelancer is someone that
Oh,
like owns a project, like an individual, and I always thought that a contractor is hired help that oftentimes integrates with full-time employees to accomplish an objective.
let me see.
I never heard
Freelance.
of someone hiring a freelancer to work with a team. Hire a consultant, right? But I always thought like your whatever those platforms are where people bid on jobs. Like I always
Hmm.
thought the freelancer owns that project and it's them, like the individual.
No, I don't.
So they write articles for publications.
I do think that you pass off like work items, but it might be like they do a subset of work. Hold on. A freelancer, a person who works as a writer, designer, grapher, platformer, and the like, selling work or services by the hour, day job, rather than working on a regular salary basis for one employer. That's one.
You got to type in what's the
Uh,
difference between freelancer and contractor.
Freelance, sometimes spelled freelance, freelance. So this is Wikipedia. are terms commonly used for a person who is self-employed and not necessarily committed to any particular employer long term. They're sometimes represented by a company or a temporary agency. While the term independent contractor would be used in a different register of English designated tax and employment classes of this type of worker.
I found
The
it.
term freelancing is most common in culture, creative industries.
Takes on more than one client at a time, while contractors usually have one client at a time.
That would make sense. Yeah, I've got a bunch of freelance jobs going on versus I'm contracting with this person to do this.
So like hookers, they would be like freelancers, but a wife would be a contractor, right? Okay.
Sort of, I guess.
I mean, your bank account drains with both of them.
Well, yeah.
Right.
Okay, yeah. Just to entertain it. I mean, marriage is a contract, so it's a contractual thing. So yeah, technically, but you're also technically the contractor in that. So there's no, it's a mutual contract. But I guess if you were trying to just frame it as somebody's doing work, someone else, just in that context, yeah, I guess that it makes sense. But
So with a wife, like you have what do you call it? Is there a specific like contract form where like they're not allowed to work with other people or work with competitors? A no compete contract, right? Yeah. So you would give a wife a no compete or non compete contract, but with a hooker, like it's not applicable. You just have to accept the terms and conditions, catch a STD, all that stuff. You're just more vulnerable. But you don't have to deal with the lawyers and the judges and the police. Well, maybe the police, but you don't have to deal with the yeah.
Yeah, there you go. The metaphor sort of works. Yeah, it does. But yeah, anyways, I forgot how we started on that whole train of thought. Anyways, did you get another one? Or
No,
is
it's the same one.
They don't do that anymore. They should co-opt it and make .NET Rocks mugs and then sell them. People can feel like they were on the show. No. But yeah, I don't know what was the context of how we got started on that train though.
I'll open it up saying that I declared last week that I have like zero interest in programming now.
Yeah.
And then it went to I think it went to maybe me saying something about envying freelancers since they don't have to negotiate or compromise with other people that are also held accountable for designing and programming a system. And my thought process was I thought that freelancers were like just independent and they own the entire project, which doesn't appear to be accurate.
Yeah. So is it? So what you were saying is, so what would be the correct term for something where what you would have to draw up a spec and then just send it off to someone, or you literally just identify the problem and then you go pay someone like, we don't know how to fix it. We're not going to prescribe a solution for you. Just solve this for us. Like, what would that even be called? Like
a partner, like because you think
engineering firm.
Yeah, because I mean, you think about aerospace, like or any government stuff, like you have vendors that bid on a government project, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so you'll have half a dozen companies that own the different components of building a new, I don't know, missile or a new airplane or rocket. I mean, you probably have more than that. And then they have their subcontractors. So I think it's like well, you subcontract, right? I feel like that term somewhere plays in there. subcontractor. I don't know.
Well, I suppose even like a contracting firm. But I mean, technically, the contract is what you do, but like your entire house is built around being an engineering firm, right? So I don't know, maybe not, because you also have to do project delivery, and it's not just the design; it's everything.
I've been Googling the most expensive hobbies, and part of me wants to put on my bucket list to get a pilot's license.
Yeah,
You know any pilots?
yeah, yeah. I know a few, or I've not like good friends with any, but there have been people I've worked with over time who've had pilot's license or have been getting pilot's licenses.
Oh, cool.
So I knew a guy who's water certified to get land the planes that land in water.
I've seen that yesterday when I was on my motorcycle. I was like, man, that plane is flying really low, and it just started like swirling around like a hawk, and then it just landed in the water when I was
Yeah,
going over the causeway. I'm like, yo, that's dope.
yeah. There's
It was the
really.
Indiana Jones plane. So if you remember Indiana Jones in the Temple of Doom,
Mhm.
and the plane with the little things
Yeah,
on the bottom so it can
pontoons.
land in the
Yep.
water.
Yeah,
Is that
pontoons.
what you call it? It's called a
Yeah, they're
pontoon plane?
well, they're those are pontoons, but I don't know if
Seaplane.
they're called pontoon planes.
I think they're called seaplane.
Seaplanes. Okay. Well, okay. So if yeah, it must be that's the general term for them is a seaplane.
That's dope. Because you know what? They got sandbar parties like up the street from me that go hard from like Thursday to Sunday. You know, people, they pull up on their yachts and their like little normal boats and jet skis. I want to pull up on a seaplane.
They there's they we get that a bit up here because there's some really expensive houses in like around the lakes up here, and so
Yeah.
people will from the Twin Cities like they hop on their plane, they fly up, and then they just land right on the lake, and then they go to their cabin, and then they do their shit, and then they take off right from there and go back. There was a guy he's trying to get a helicopter pad approved at his house, and that they didn't let him do that, so I'm assuming he'll just take seaplane from now.
How close is his nearest neighbor?
I don't know, but they wouldn't let him do it. They wouldn't let him put the helipad in his property. If somebody else you can tell you what you can do with it, it's not your property, right?
Yeah,
You know,
pretty
nobody owns
much.
property in this. Nobody owns property.
Yeah, the Native Americans found that out real fast.
Yeah.
So
The government sort of does. It's actually it's weird because it's like you technically lease your
eminent domain,
property.
right?
Yeah, you lease your property for fairly cheap from the government, basically, or from the thing. Yeah, well, it's not even eminent domain. It's just like if you don't pay your property taxes, your land get taken away.
No, no, no. Eminent domain is, as I understand it, is the state reserves the right, the city or I think it's the state. Well, it could
Hmm.
be the city. The city or state reserves the right to take your property if they sincerely believe that it's for the better good.
Yeah, yeah, that I know. Yeah, it's part of that, and then like I said, like literally, if you just don't pay your property tax, they'll take it away too. So because it's for the greater good that you pay your property tax, I guess. Property tax, I've come to realize is probably the worst tax in the world because you have absolutely no way to control it whatsoever. There's no sort of um, escape from it. Like if you get into a house or situation, you must pay property taxes. You can't just be the hermit, right? So you have to literally not own the land if you want to go in boondock.
Yeah, I would live on like a riverboat, or I would just live on the water. Like I would just build a Cuban raft and set up shop on the water, and I don't have to pay any taxes.
Yeah. But also like somebody can move in next to you and build like a giant, really nice house that raises your property tax value, your house value up.
Oh
which
yeah,
raises
so,
your property tax up, and you have no control over what your neighbors do.
yeah, but then you could sell it and make them come up if you're not bound to living there the rest of your life.
Yeah, you could, but if you like your property and now you can't afford your property, it's like, well, sorry, guess what? You have no control over this.
Yeah, but theoretically, I'm sure that people have considered, hey, investor, I don't plan on leaving, but if you pay my taxes, my property taxes, I'll give you X percentage, when this house does go up for sale. Oh, by the way, I don't plan on putting this house up for sale for the next 15 years. Like, I'm sure there's something like that. And people that
Yeah,
just have money that they don't know what to do with, and say, all right,
yeah. There's my brother-in-law, their house is under this kind of like housing like thing where you get kind of like you're able to pick up your house for cheaper, but basically the terms at the end are that you must sell it back through this group, and then um, I don't know. There's they take a percentage of the sale or something like that.
uh,
Yeah, but but yeah, no, I'm just yeah, it's just it stinks because you have no control over like sales tax. You can choose to just not buy things to avoid sales tax, right? So it's all based on you can control your consumption. Income tax, you can control your earnings. You want to pay less in income tax, you could just have a you know cheaper or just not have an expensive job, or you make enough where you can offset that. You can always try to offset it by
uh,
earning more. There's no way to offset the cost of property tax. It's literally just sorry. The only option is to sell your house and move
uh,
away. And yeah,
at least it's an option.
yeah, it's broken though. It's
I
housing
wonder,
is broken.
I wonder if there's any countries that tax you regardless.
Just
Like
for existing.
for existing in their state, their country. Like
North
so
Korea maybe.
homeless people still owe a tax regardless of them not having anywhere to go and not having any income and just living off the land.
Hmm. Yeah, maybe. Trying to think of like what that would look like.
It would look like military service.
Yeah. Well, countries do have mandatory military service. Austria, I think it does, and
Russia does, right?
Hungary, or not Hungary. Well,
Singapore
maybe Hungary.
does. I thought Israel does. I think almost every country does, I think.
Mandatory military service countries. There are. Let me see.
Basically, any country
Yeah,
that doesn't
Russia
have more
does.
than 300 million people.
Mexico does. Brazil does.
Uh,
We have de jure, which means I believe that's our. You can compulse service, but you don't have to go do it actively. Um,
yeah, I just remember as a conscientious objector, I still had to register for selective, what's it called? Selective service
hmm
in order to be eligible for school loans. I love how they squeeze that in there. Like, hey, if you want to take a loan from the United States government, you have to opt into registering for military service in case we go to war. Like,
hmm
who snuck that into the bill?
Yeah, no, I mean that's yeah. There's a whole host of things that you like rights you lose if you don't sign up. I wonder how that works with people who are like so like how does the government do that with people who are like I bet this will come to play at some point, and it probably already has, but people who are like transitioning or whatever. Like I'm technically a male, but I'm not a male, right? So or
I
I'm
don't
a
think the
woman, but now I
government.
identify as a man.
I don't think the government care. Well, they probably would care because it would cause disruption.
Like if so, you've like seen on the news, right? Like that there's debates of go like, okay, this kid wants to
Well,
is a girl,
Ukraine
so we're
didn't
gonna start
care.
we're gonna start
Hey, gambler.
we're gonna start a like transitioning them with hormones or whatever. And so now by the time they're like 14, everybody thinks that they're a man or a woman, right? But they weren't biologically born that way. What does the government then do when it comes time to sign up for selective service? Do they? Because women don't have to sign up for the selective service, but men do in the U.S.
Well, they should require them to sign up for it because it's equal rights.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know why it's not that
If
way.
women have to take a different test to be a fireman, then they should also be required to register for a selective service. Like it shouldn't. There shouldn't be a double standard. Like anything that men are required, or else they get kidnapped at gunpoint and thrown behind bars. Like if we really want everything to be equal, women should have to go through the same thing unless they're pregnant. I said that on the record. So you're going to get canceled because you're associated to me.
No, it's all right. I was just thinking how if Gambler would have signed up for the military in Switzerland, he would have been a Swiss Army soldier. Going back to our discussion earlier.
No, but I mean, I heard stories of like when Ukraine got invaded and transgender, whatever. They're like, "Oh no, I'm a woman." They're like, "No, you're not. You're staying." Like they didn't play that. So like I would think in what do you call it? A state of emergency, or basically like when you're being invaded. Yeah, I don't think those rules apply.
Hmm.
So
I'm got selected out of the army, so you can make it to the military. So if you can make it into the
no,
military,
rich people can opt out of it apparently.
oh, okay. But I think it'd be funny to be part of the Swiss Army. Like I'm a Swiss Army, so like a Swiss
Did,
Army knife.
did
We
you
had that
watch?
conversation earlier about Swiss Army knives, Swiss
Did you
watches.
watch? Did you watch the documentary "What Is a Woman"?
I've seen clips from it, just the highlight
Yeah,
clips. I haven't watched it though.
I think I understand the far left. I just think that they haven't really articulated it for others to really understand. So, you ready? What I believe the far left is trying to say when they're saying that just because you have a specific genitalia does not make you um, a specific gender. I think what they're really saying is the following: they want to opt out of roles that are projected onto people just because they either have a penis or a vagina. They want to opt out of it, right? They want to say that, hey, because I was born with a penis doesn't mean that I should be subjected to this specific type of treatment that boys are subjected to as they're developing in life, right? From toys to manners to all this stuff. Like they're saying, no, just because I have this specific organ attached to me does not mean that I should be treated this specific way. That has nothing to do with how I feel about myself. It has everything to do with what you see that's attached to me. And I disagree with that type of treatment, right? And
Yeah, that makes
I
sense.
understand that, right? So a 6'7" black man all the time, you play ball, hey, you got to play ball. When I'm in college, hey, you play ball, hey, like if I'm on vacation, oh, are you an NBA player, right? And so, especially in college, it's kind of like disappointing that the only reason why I could be in college is to entertain white people by fetching balls, whether it's football or basketball. Like it's inconceivable that I could be in college for a STEM program,
Yeah.
right? And
It's
so when I try to relate it to myself and things that frustrate me, I think I understand, even though I've never heard them articulate it that way, why I, what their motivation is, and what I think they really mean that they haven't really articulated. So,
yeah. I mean, I don't like I don't really have any like ill will or want to force people into any compartmentalized thing in terms of that stuff. So I don't like I get that. I mean, I understand it. There is a difference when you start to potentially like there's a difference when you start to do uh when you start to convince people to like make actual physical changes along with what they're to match align with what their mental state is before potentially they're fully formed. So I get like I don't know about the whole like idea of like, oh, my son likes to play with Barbies, so we better get him started on hormones or whatever, so he doesn't become he doesn't ever actually grow hair or something. I don't know, but that's like you know, like you go through a natural set of changes when you reach a certain age, and you could totally just your mindset could totally change because of that hormone balance. But that doesn't mean you like, dude. I'm sure that there's dudes who are brisky males even who fricking really love collecting and playing with Barbies and whatever. More power to you. I don't care. I know that there's people that are they're in the whole like furry culture stuff, and people kind of like to poke fun at them. But you know what? Hell, you be whatever you want to be. I don't give a shit. Go ahead and do that, and if as long as you're happy, I don't. What the hell does that do to me? As soon as you start to try to compel other people to do things, then it starts to bother me. Like so
for
like
the record, there's nothing wrong with furries.
yeah, there isn't. I don't think there's anything wrong with them. It's just
I would know.
yeah. But the things like so when you get into like with what happened in Canada and why Jordan Peterson came into like his whole like thing is like you must use these pronouns or now you're going to be like legally punished. It's like, okay, I think as my respect as a human being for another person, if you came up and said to me like, okay, you know what, you could just use these things for me, please. And I would probably just respectfully do that. Like, okay, I'll try. And it's gonna be hard because we pattern match and stuff, but I'll try because I respect people as people. Um, like if you suggested to me like, hey, if we join the chat, you should call me Lord Bismonger every time. I'd be like, okay, I guess I'll try.
Yeah,
Lord Bismonger,
but why would you?
yeah, but the thing, just to, like it out of respect for that person. But if you come to me and say like, you know what, if you call me this again, you're gonna get legally, you know, messed up. I just like no, just let's avoid each other. Then I don't want to respect you.
What's the definition of respect? Like, at what point do you draw the line and say, Sean, you are not a moose. As much as you want to be referred to as a moose, as much as you want to make moose sounds, you're not a moose. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to oblige you. Like, at what point do you stop caring about people's feelings?
Well,
Because
no, I mean,
it's
if the thing is I will I could make a conscious effort to do that, right? If you want to be called a moose, I could. All right, moosey, moose buddy. I don't know how that would even work, but the thing is I don't want you to be pissed off at me and get angry if I slip and say he or she or whatever, like it's the whole oh, you misgendered me. Now I'm offended. I don't care if you're offended. Like it's hard to escape,
it's
you
happened to
know,
me.
the simplicities that we like. You're creating infinite complexity by having to maintain in my head the pronoun like relationship to it. So I will not actively try to call you this, but don't get mad at me if I do, and I'll try to correct myself if I realize it. But like
I mean, it's the
I
same
just
thing
yeah.
with them joining like college sports and destroying every record that a woman has ever had.
Yeah, well, that's where we should get it. Well, that's where it starts to get into like the question of, all right,
Trans athletes have their own
yeah,
group.
classification or
Yeah,
but then what's the difference between a female and a male trans athlete? There's a huge difference there too. So it's like, maybe it should literally just be classes, and it's just that most females only end up in, class C or something like that. I could never compete with like male swimmers, like top tier male swimmers. There's no way. Like, even if I train my hardest, I'm never going to be nearly as good. I just don't have the physiology to do that.
yeah.
Um,
It's just interesting how extreme things are,
yeah.
where people don't want to get into legal trouble, especially at the university. They don't want to catch a discrimination lawsuit.
Hmm.
And so what happens is, in theory, they they somewhat discriminate against the majority that is supposed to benefit, right? So I'm almost positive that there were probably male swim teams before female swim teams. I'm almost positive,
Oh yeah, there is. Yeah.
right? And then, so like maybe decades later, they say, hey, we're gonna have women's basketball, we're gonna have women's swimming, and women's this, women's that, so that women can have an opportunity to get scholarships or have an opportunity to have uh, some of the athletic opportunities that men have if they want to go professional in, well, sports. That makes sense to me, right? And then, a guy decides to say, you know what? I don't like how society treats me because of my penis. So I'm just going to associate that to how I'll be treated if I had a vagina. And I want everybody to now re- treat me as a woman, which means that I'm going to take advantage of being treated as a woman so that I could be an outlier for women and what I'm interested in. And they just
Hmm.
start destroying all these records, and any person that genuinely had handicaps based on their physiology that were naturally, conceived, they don't have the same opportunities anymore, right? So it's just weird. And within academia, people that are so intelligent and they really perform critical like thinking and then are supposed to have policies to back that up. I feel like everything's now no longer about critical thinking, is everything about uh, protecting people's feelings, and I just think it's unfortunate.
Yeah. And I think the heart of all of this is that there's the probably what is the woman thing is that there's definitely like identity and role tied with being a woman. But there's also just biologically female things. So when they say women swimming, what they're trying to say is that this is reserved for people who are biologically born with
Less bone density,
less bone density,
uh,
yeah, less capability to produce
whatever
muscle,
whatever Y
lower,
chromosomes or
yeah, yeah. It's the physiological difference. So it's like I don't know if they have to change it to biologically female swimming and biologically male swimming, or and to
probably
make it so that like they can restore the balance, because that's the problem is it's all word games, and the word game part of it is just annoying as shit. And I
yeah.
think that's
So
probably, I'm assuming that that's what's behind the whole name of like what is a woman, because it's it's a word game. The whole thing is a word game. Like you want to be you want to be fill the identity role of a woman in society. That doesn't physically, biologically make you a woman, and there's a distinction there. So you get into gender politics, and gender gender and the roles assigned to gender are constructs, and they just happen to align always with biological, almost always biological, like your biological things. And so this is just the big problem overall. I don't think it's bad for someone who's male to want to fill the role of a female in society, or to not fill the role, but to fill the identity of assume the identity of a woman in society in terms of how they treat it. Whatever, go ahead. But it does become problematic when you start to not take physiology into the whole mix in certain things, right? Like sports. So
Yeah, these are first world problems we deal with in 2022.
yeah. But that's what I was getting at, was like, if you identify as a dude, and you're, oh, hold on a second. Hey buddy, I'm on a call. But if you identify as a dude, but you're like, how does that work with the selective service then? Like, and that's what, like, so do they define it as biologically, physiologically male, and that's how they define what if you have to sign up for selective service?
Well, in theory, you don't have to sign up for it. There's
You
just
don't,
certain
yeah,
there's
you
just
lose.
certain privileges that you don't get, right? For the same reason that you can be a conscientious objector, but I mean, it still has to be based off of like historical evidence that support that claim.
What happens if you don't sign up for selective service? You're registered and you do not. You will not be eligible for state-based student aid, federal job training, or a federal job. You may be prosecuted and you may be prosecuted in up to $250,000 of fines and jail time up to 5 years.
Hold up, I thought it was optional.
If you're registered, okay, if you are required to register and you do not, you will be not eligible for state-based student aid in many states, federal job training, or federal jobs. You may be prosecuted and face a fine up to $250,000 in jail time for 5 years. If you never register and are being denied federal whatever, you still may get them. To do so, you must provide evidence that you did not intentionally avoid registering.
How do you do that?
You'd have to, like, I don't know.
What evidence can you provide to say that you didn't intentionally not register?
If Congress and President authorize a draft, the selective service will start calling registered men ages 18 to 25 for duty. Well, we're just in a random lottery. Men will be examined for mental, physical, and moral fitness for military service, which is basically going to exclude pretty much the entire next generation. They'll either be deferred or exempt from military service or inducted to the armed forces. This is basically like if you get drafted, you just need to eat a bunch of Twinkies if you don't want to go, and
or overdose on some drugs.
Yeah, but that whole fine thing is that's crazy. You don't sign up, well, technically it's still optional. You just might get jailed for 5 years.
I wish Trump introduced a bill to require women to register too.
Yeah, I wonder if that's where I'm wondering if it's like if it's just like conceptually a difficult thing, because like, you're not going to send a pregnant woman to war, probably. Like, and so, like, just from a compartmentalization standpoint, like,
well, you still have to go to a physical, right? The physical will root that out.
But it's just like it's a game, right? So if you have 30%, let's say, of that population ineligible just because of circumstances, probably but you could you can achieve your entire goal by dealing with only half of the overall population. Not to say that most women are pregnant in their 20s and 30s, or their early 20s, but just saying, like, there's like the lottery in terms of if I call this person in, are they going to be eligible to fulfill the need as soon as possible? Like, you have a better chance with a male because of the fact that they can't possibly get pregnant. A biologically male cannot possibly get pregnant.
I
So
would
it's
argue
like,
that a man can, if they really wanted to, they can make themselves ineligible physically as well.
it's like, well, just, yeah, because it's like, well, yeah, they could, but the thing is like, if you're going to call up, like, if you're going to try to get someone to do something like this, do you want to call in somebody who has like a 50-50 shot or a really easy way to get out of it, which is just get pregnant, right?
It depends on how dire the circumstances are. If you
Yeah.
just need bodies for the sake of putting them on the front lines to overwhelm the first stage of attack, they're
Yeah.
sacrificial lambs.
Well, in that case, it's then then it's a homeland type thing. It's not a foreign engagement, like, because the draft was enacted for Vietnam, like, why, you know, like, World War II was an attack on the homeland, right? So technically, we needed people, and we needed a lot of them too, but not like Vietnam. There's no point to that.
Israel Gambler says Israel requires both men and women to register.
Yeah, I
Or to
think they
train.
actually go probably.
Yeah.
Gal Gadot, they're good.
I worked for an
Wonder Woman, he was in
Israeli startup, and yeah, I think they have mandatory 2 years. I know Singapore does too.
that. I think some others do as well. But I forgot how we got started on this topic. Swiss Army.
It
Gambler.
started with yeah.
Call him Swiss Army Gambler from now on. We gotta change his name.
Gambler. I still think about Folgore off of Killer Instinct too.
Yeah. Well, see, you'll never, if you think about him as Swiss Army Gambler now, you'll never accidentally have to ask him if he's Swedish ever again.
And I forget it every single time. Between Switzerland, Sweden, to me, those are the same countries. I don't know why, but they are.
They're totally different. Yeah. Anyways, you work on your beach delivery project at all this week?
I think about it every day.
And go,
But no.
I should be.
Like, my plan is to get laid off or my contract gets terminated. And then while I'm waiting for my next lucrative contract, I spend like 4 to 8 weeks trying to get from 90% complete to 95% complete. I will use that time when I'm unemployed to. Plus, it'll be helpful for when I interview, right? It'll bring up certain how-tos or whatever. You know what I hate in interviews when people ask you the specific, like the specific syntax for coding questions that relate to like third-party integration. Like, how would you integrate with what code would you write to integrate with Stripe, or what code would you write to integrate with, I don't know, Facebook authentication or whatever?
What code would I write? Whatever's code is necessary.
No, because my mentality is like abstractions, right? So I don't
Yeah.
really look at the implementation details after I write it. I usually try to like abstract that stuff away, and it just works. So
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's the idea, is to
I can't wait
abstractions are to make the world simpler.
I can't wait to start interviewing candidates again. I really enjoy technical screening people. It's kind of immoral how much I enjoy it.
Yeah.
It's like an insecurity, right? Like it's like Napoleon syndrome. All my
Yeah.
insecurities I'm going to project onto someone that wants this opportunity.
Yeah, I thought about that times. Like maybe I should have you run me through what your interview looks like, and then but then I'd be like worried, like, oh, Scott will think Sean's shit because he
Well,
thinks everyone's shit.
so I haven't told you my interview question. Okay, so
Design a beach delivery app. No.
essentially, yeah. It's designed a Uber Eats app, and not only design it, but also articulate your strategy for how you're going to manage the development effort.
How you'd
So
manage the development effort. Yeah.
yeah, so it's a two-stage like challenge or question, and usually they don't get to the second part of the question of managing the development effort. And
Yeah.
if they do get to it, they don't give me the answer that I was hoping they would give me.
So the like development effort, because that's a very like business driven product type thing, right? So an actual good design for that would probably be is to abstract away a lot of the non-technical or the not necessarily, this doesn't have to be a technical solution thing, and do that all manually to start, because that you have to develop it over time. So like clearly you need to have an app that will give you directions from one place to another, right? And that's a technical thing that you must kind of have, and you must be able to do the geolocation. That's like and and that kind of stuff. But to actually, like, for instance, order the food to at the target place, like you could just start by having literally somebody who gets the message in and literally just sit, like you've brought that up, like you pay some people to just sit there and they call up, and it's a losing business proposition, but you're not trying to, they order the food and then somebody goes and gets it, but you're not at that stage of a startup, you're not really trying to make money, you're trying to prove that the model could make money.
And yeah, but I expect them to scope their requirements, right? Gambler says I would probably fail Scott's screening.
Yeah.
I, I would fail my screening, right?
Yeah.
Because what I'm looking for is for them to understand the scope of what I'm asking them to design, right? Are they really designing Uber Eats, or are they designing the enterprise in which the the value of that enterprise when it's assembled is delivering food to people, right? And so then it's like, okay, well, and I'll say, yeah, yeah, sure, design the enterprise for it, not just the Uber Eats, system. So then when they're designing the enterprise, obviously there's a whole bunch of ways to approach it, but the what they would pass on is if they start adding like these areas of responsibility for the enterprise. Like what's a lot of people, a lot of engineers, they don't bring up the reason why this system is being built in the first place. 99% of the time, it's to make a profit. It's a business application, right? So I want to see this enterprise system partitioned into the following areas: uh, profit, right? Which you break down profit into revenue and expenses, and what are the systems that are going to be focused on the revenue? What is this application doing that brings in the revenue? Is it just customers ordering food, or are there additional revenue streams such as restaurants that are paying a monthly subscription or some type of subscription in order for their catalog, aka menu, to be on that app, right? Is there some type of like kickback, any type of revenue channel or revenue stream? Like I want that to be also part of the enterprise. Anything that manages expenses, I want those systems to be part of it. And then you got another tier after the profit area of building the enterprise and all the systems that support that area of the enterprise dealing with profit, hence revenue and expenses. Another one would be the actual like value, right? The value is this Uber Eats app. The value is like how do they from end to end get what they need so that this system accommodates them and it's useful, right?
Well,
So
yeah,
that's the
that's a
actual system itself. And then the other part is the security and monitoring. Well, the security part, right? Not the security, but it's security and observation or monitoring.
Yeah, that
So
but that's not what you're asking them to do. You're not
no,
asking them to design the enterprise, like
I'm
design the company Uber.
I'm asking them to. I give you a very vague objective. Design this Uber Eats app, and in this case, I'm interviewing for someone to be an architect, right? So I guess I
Mhm.
left that part out, right? I'm interviewing architects, and
Like
so
what
I've
kind of architect too is the question. It's like
well, it could be a domain architect or
application
it could be a solutions
architecting,
architect.
yeah, solutions, yeah. What yeah,
So
so
to
it's
me, it should be on an architect, whatever type of architect, it should be on the radar regardless. Like you should have a breadth of knowledge. You don't have to know everything in depth, but you should be aware of considerations. You don't even have to be aware of the technologies that support those considerations, but you should be aware of like the security considerations. You should be aware of the eight fallacies of distributed computing. You should be aware of CAP theorem. Like if I'm screening you, I expect you to earn a right to be at that technical screening. And so I'm going to
yep.
probe into that. And what I'm really looking for you, I'm looking for the candidate to do a brain dump of all the considerations, all the questions that that they want me to say, don't worry about that. That's not within scope. Like I expect them to just give me everything that's on their mind, that their mind is bubbling up, and then we scope it, and then they take the last remaining 10 minutes to just throw out, okay, well, I would do this, right?
Yeah, I mean, because
An
if you
hour, 40 minutes is not fair, but that's how much time I'm really given.
yeah, I mean, if you ask me to design an Uber Eats app, I'm going to look at the very specific um like the flow of information and systems that would need to be involved in doing that capability. So like I said, not getting down into the details of, oh, I'm going to use Google Maps to do this, even if that's in the back of my mind. But like I said, it's like, okay, you would start with like, here's the person requesting food or wanting food. You start with that, and then they need to have some sort of portal to hit. So they go to your app, an app of some sort. Um, if it's web or mobile, it doesn't matter. And they're going to need to have options or offerings that they need to go through to see what they could actually order. So that implies that that there's another side to this marketplace, which is the businesses that offer their foods on your platform. So they need a portal to do this as well. And then, right now, you've got your two portals. This is how they would connect, and then this is how the transaction starts to go, and the pieces that are involved in that. So, you know, you have, yeah, and they just start walking through it. Um,
Yeah, and then I would start stepping in. And I would say, "Oh, and what how would you implement that? Like what technology or what yeah, what
would you pick
technology?
like a specific component of it then? So,
No. So for example, I would say, um, do you think that it should be a requirement that the customer is able to track the courier as they're waiting for their food or they're waiting for whatever item is supposed to be delivered to them? And usually they say, yeah. I'm like, so how would you support that? Like, what technology would you use, right?
gotcha. Well, I mean, so you wouldn't necessarily need that though. I think that
No,
that's
there's
an
different layers
advanced
to it.
feature. Yeah, it's an
It's
advanced
different
feature,
layers
but
to it. Like
how would
one,
you implement that feature, I suppose, is a question. I mean, you're talking about you're basically event streaming um, location to from one place to another, because hitting certain milestones and as you're delivering food is events. So you've got the courier apps, you know, eventing out location updates that has to then get streamed through probably like, I mean, if you're getting into specific details, it'd probably go into like a Kafka stream or something like that, an event stream. And then you'd have a consumer app on the other side connected up with that particular app instance. Well, actually, it could be because you could close the app and then go decide to look at it on the computer. So
Exactly.
yeah, you'd have
It-
to have potentially multiple outlets into the same
So
thing.
like I'm looking for them. I mean, there's a couple answers to it,
Yeah.
but one of the answers is WebSockets, right? So Azure SignalR if we're doing .NET stuff. But anyway, like it's different layers. Like I'm looking for them to do domain modeling, which I think you alluded to, and then I'm looking for them to um, talk about what transport mechanism they're going to use to facilitate specific interactions or integrations between two components, right? And I'm pretty much trying to make sure that whoever candidate that we do select, in which usually we don't, that they're not going to embarrass me when they go in front of business stakeholders and when they go in front of really smart developers. Like they could walk the walk across both audiences, and it's important that So I'll just stop right there. So
Yeah.
I'll go pretty deep.
My
I
problem
would
with
fail my own interview. I would. I'm being
Yeah.
honest.
my problem with doing the business stakeholder thing is that one of my I think one of my strengths is that if you give me a little bit of information, I can extrapolate it out pretty far. Like take that little bit and just like, well, that means this, and I'll be like way the hell down into the weeds,
Yeah.
and then I have to catch myself and be like, but you don't care about that. Sorry, getting back to what you're asking, because I'll literally do this in meetings. Somebody will bring something up and I'll go, huh, that means this, which means this, which means this, which means this. And I'll literally put my eyes up like this, and it means this and this and this and this. And then by the time I catch myself, they're just like, what are you doing? So yeah, I like, man, it's tough to try to keep out of the weeds on that. So
I'm
because
the
like
same way.
even what you just talked about, like it's like, oh, you just said design a thing. So I'm like, okay, that means we have to have the courier app, which means this has got to talk this way to this thing. And then this is how that transaction, and this is the technology that it's going to use in there. And then, and then you start thinking about exception paths. Well, what happens if, like I just did that. Like, what happens if they shut their app down and they actually want to go on a computer? Because I know that happens because I've done that. And it's like, well, then I will need to be able to pick up my session in a different place. Okay, so we need some sort of identity provider where I can identify myself in two places. There's got to be some sort of way to pick up the subscription from that thing across potentially many servers. I could use the actor model. Actually, would really work well for streaming location
And,
stuff.
and just
Yeah.
that slice of like 10 seconds, like you would already have my confidence.
Yeah. But I wouldn't be able to stand in front of the business because I would literally do that in front of the business. They don't care about all that. They just want to know. Well, I mean, not necessarily. I catch myself. I'm getting better at it, but they don't want to. They don't need to know the details. Like
No.
they want to know the costs associated with it and what options they have. So it is like something where I think you'd have to say there's a huge amount of complexity in getting an ordering system. Like if we're at an early stage startup, there's actually a lot of complexity in getting it so that we can put a device that a restaurant has in their store that they're willing to monitor along with all their other devices that they're going to monitor. And there might be a solution like you had, because you talked about Olo or whatever, where they could do that for you.
Oh my God.
But there's a huge cost to that too. Here's, what phase of the startup are we in? Because one of the options, and you brought this up too, is you could literally just pay someone to do it. It's Wizard of Oz, right? It looks automated, but it's not automated. It's all being controlled behind the person behind the curtain.
Which I would argue isn't worth the risk because it's just very error prone.
Yeah, it's error prone, but it depends on what phase of the startup you're in, right? Because you might not be actually trying to. You might not be. Your goal might not be to put out a perfect system and get trust at this point. It might be just to evaluate the actual like thing. So the thing is like if you can verify that people would actually use the app to get food, and that now it's to optimize. The next step is to optimize the system, right? If people will actually pay this to me, this is how much I can actually eke out in a margin based on the model of business. Can I remove that human piece of it and automate that where it's
See you,
cheap
gambler.
enough to fit within the margin range, right? And that's becomes the thing. And if the answer is no, then the model's not going to work, and you have to think about something else, right?
Yeah.
Anyways, I probably got to get going here too. My son's like crawling in here, looking at me like
Okay.
he's like, "I need your help with getting
Like,
something."
Father.
Yep.
All
right.
We'll catch up. See you. Bye.
Yep. See you next week. Yep.
Bye, whoever's observing. Adios.